Eddie, I think this is an especially poignant time to talk about Martin Luther King on this MLK Day, and also to talk about what happened in 2020. You and I have been talking for quite some time about how we synthesize our dual realities. That we had an extraordinary group of political philosophers at the beginning of this republic who created documents that freed more men and women and liberated more men and women than anybody in the history of this world. It was a revolution, and yet most were slaveholders. And the question is, how do you synthesize that? Also, especially after 2020, when many people like you and me believed that that constitutional republic was at risk. Who saved that constitutional republic created, for the most part, by white slaveholders? It was black women. Black women in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee County, in Wayne County, Michigan, in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County, Georgia. I mean, you want to talk about irony. The American experiment lives today because of black voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. How remarkable is that?
Yeah, Joe. I mean, we've been having this conversation for a number of years, and we saw it in real time over this last election cycle. But, you know, when we think back on American history, we know that what is challenged, what has been the contradiction, what has been the serpent wrapped around the legs of the table upon which the Constitution was signed, the Declaration of Independence was crafted, was this belief that white people matter more than others, that this ideology of whiteness. And we want to just distinguish this. I mean, it's hard for us to do in this moment. But we think about every moment of crisis. Most of the major moments of crises in this country where we've challenged the basic precepts of democracy. It has been in defense of this belief that this country ought to remain a white nation in the vein of old Europe. When we think about, just really quickly, when we think about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and we think about radical Reconstruction, Joe, and then we think about the Compromise of 1877, what was that about? That was about an ideology. Of course, there were economic underpinnings, but that was an ideology that insisted that the nation had to be a white nation in the vein of old Europe. And Hitler's Germany would look to us as a model, as scholars at Yale have written about. And when we think about the mid-20th century and Dr. King's sacrifice and the sacrifice of everyday ordinary people for us to actually make good on the promises of radical Reconstruction, this is why scholars call it the Second Reconstruction. Why was it undermined? How did we roll it back? It had everything to do with this consensus behind us. And what's so interesting about the recent moment is that we saw people sacking the Capitol in defense of a world that Dr. King sacrificed his life to destroy. Those people are cleaving to a world that Dr. King gave his life to dismantle. It is up to you and me, Joe, and others, for us to begin the hard work of imagining America apart from this insidious view that some people ought to be valued more because of the color of their skin. We have to finally uproot that so we can step into the promise of American life.
And, you know, Mika, there has been so much progress, so much racial progress in this country since 1963, since the year of my birth. Just 6 years later, I was playing on playgrounds in rural Mississippi with an integrated class of black and white kids. So much progress made through the 70s and 80s and 90s and with the election of President Obama. So many things that we have seen that many Americans would not have believed we would have seen in the year of my birth. And at the same time, as I said just last week, if those rioters had been from Anacostia, and if they had been black, they would have been shot in the face and killed. If they had been organizing a protest to disrupt the election and had bragged about that protest coming on December the 6th, there never would have been a protest. You know why? They would have never gotten the permits. Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.